Hey everyone, and welcome to the Ask the Expert session on modernizing your security operations. My name is Adam Paul. I work as a director in the Microsoft security business. With me today, I have Gilad, I have Sarah and Zvi, who are going to be helping asking questions. Just before we start, a little bit of etiquette around how to engage in this session. Please use the chat to ask your questions. We will be looking at those and selecting them to elevate them up. We also have a crew of people who are monitoring behind to make sure that we get to all of your questions, and please upvote questions that have been asked that you would love to hear the answer to. That helps us understand who's excited about which questions, and we will look to answer verbally and over chat. Just for reference, the session may be recorded. Help our moderators, please don't spam or post inappropriate comments. And as with all of Microsoft Ignite, please adhere to the code of conduct, which has been pasted into the chat window, and also I will put up briefly as part of the recording as well. With that, I will kick off. If you watched the live session just prior to this around modernizing your data center, you would have seen that we had a number of announcements in there around the rebrand to Microsoft Defender and also positioning SIM and XDR. So to kick things off, maybe Zvi, from your side, maybe we could talk about the Microsoft Defender rebrand and how the individual solutions are coming together as part of XDR.
Yes, hi everyone, Zvi Ben Sheffer. I'm program manager on the Microsoft 365 Defender. Under Microsoft 365 Defender, which is AKA or used to be known as Microsoft Threat Protection, we have 4 workload solutions that report or are the fundamentals of that, which is our Microsoft Defender for Endpoint, used to be Microsoft Defender Advanced Threat Protection. We now have Microsoft Defender for Office 365, which used to be Office Advanced Threat Protection. We have Microsoft Defender for Identity, used to be called Azure Advanced Threat Protection, and we have Microsoft Cloud App Security also pouring information into that one solution, Microsoft 365 Defender. That solution is more than just joined in the portal own naming. This is a solution which is joined at the hip. These solutions, once you deploy them side by side in your tenant, talk to each other, create that one experience called Microsoft 365 Defender.
Awesome. And from your side, Sarah, maybe talking about Azure Sentinel and how we're going in the cloud SIM business. Pretty exciting to see that come together as well.
Yeah, we're very excited. We've got a bunch of new announcements, new features and capabilities that we're launching here at Microsoft Ignite this week. Hopefully you guys saw a few of those that we covered in the session earlier today, and there'll be lots of deep dives. But Azure Sentinel is essentially extending the set of security monitoring and threat response capabilities across the customer's entire digital estate. So bringing in data from third-party technologies and services that they're using, an ecosystem of partnering security products and services, looking across multiple cloud environments to provide that one unified view of security and threat response across the org.
Great. All right, question for you, Gilad, around Azure Defender and setting up integrations across the services and connecting into Sentinel. Maybe you can talk a little bit about the integration there.
Yes, definitely. So Azure Security Center and Azure Defender and threat protection capabilities that it provides are natively connected to Azure Sentinel by, first of all, sending the alerts that are created as part of Azure Defender into Sentinel, and then as part of a tighter integration, also enabling for cross updates between the products around the closing of alerts in Security Center, which will impact on the correlated incident in the Sentinel side.
Great. Let me just see, there's a couple of good ones here. Sarah, just a good question here on the breadth of connections for Sentinel and bringing in data from other security sources.
Yeah, so again, Azure Sentinel enables you to collect data from across your entire estate. That includes your Microsoft products and services. In fact, we announced new integration this week for some additional Microsoft sources, including Microsoft Defender for Endpoint, raw data, and Defender for Office 365 alert data. So making it easy to ingest all your Microsoft sources, but of course, third-party data sources as well from other clouds like AWS, as well as other third-party security products and services. And we have direct connectors, which make it easy to connect to those various data sources and ingest that data into Sentinel. And we also support a variety of standard collection methods like Ceph and syslog and taxi for your threat and intelligence data as well.
Great. One here for you, Zvi. I'll broaden the question. The question was, is there a URL for the Microsoft 365 Defender portal? But I think maybe dig a little bit into where we desire or suggest that security professionals start their day and how the individuals come together into the unified portal.
So, well, you asked two questions. Where do you want to start the day? I would say that our security professional starts the day on their SIM, so they will start their workload on Sentinel. We have today published just last week into public preview our single connector between Microsoft 365 Defender and Sentinel. So you do not need to individually connect to individual workloads anymore in order to consume these incident alerts, raw data events, bidirectional API into your Sentinel environment. You can have one connector for Microsoft 365 Defender properties. We envision that you enrich that incident information or alert information comes from Microsoft Defender, Microsoft 365 Defender inside your SIM environment with additional information coming from your third-party software, coming from other environment information that you have into your organization, and dive into Microsoft 365 Defender to do a deep analysis on the alerts and the information and auto IR that kicked in as part of the built-in capabilities of Microsoft Defender 365, Microsoft 365 Defender.
Awesome. Another question for you here, Sarah. We have some new behavioral analytics in Azure Sentinel. Asking just to talk a little bit more about what that looks like.
Sure. So yes, we are very excited to announce this week support for user and entity behavioral analytics that are built in to Azure Sentinel, and very, very easy to enable these in a couple of clicks. That's a bit different from other SIEM technologies that require a lot of setup and configuration. This is powered by Microsoft's proven UEBA platform that's leveraged across lots of our different products and services. So we get the benefit of that real depth in terms of the platform and the expertise that our engineers and security analysts bring to it. So it basically analyzes event and user data. It builds out a profile across time and also across peer groups. So it really understands at depth who a user is and what their typical behaviors and behaviors of their peers are. And from that, it can provide valuable context that can be used for hunting and threat detection in Sentinel. And it also can be used to identify anomalies, which again can be leveraged for detection or helping you to understand which users might require a second look that might represent some risk to the organization based on those anomalous behaviors that are identified by the service.
Awesome. Question for you, Gilad, about Defender and the protection of additional capabilities such as Exchange, SharePoint, and Windows servers. Maybe we could up-level the question around the breadth of coverage that Azure Defender has from a cloud resource point of view.
Yes, thank you. So Azure Defender focuses on protecting the infrastructure, which of course powers the services such as SharePoint as well, assuming that's running on your environment. We are basically taking all of the services that used to be threat protection under Security Center for storage, SQL, VMs, containers, etc., and now packaging them basically under Azure Defender. And as I mentioned earlier in the session, this now covers also Azure Defender for servers and for VMs covers VMs and servers running anywhere, right? Whether that be on your on-prem environment or your AWS environment, and therefore can protect infrastructure there as well. Now, if the question is whether we are actually taking this to also protect the application level for SharePoint, then Azure Defender is not doing that at the moment, but the Microsoft 365 Defender has some more capabilities around the Office protection.
I think this one's for you, Sarah. Managing storage retention and pruning security data in Sentinel. How does data storage work underneath Sentinel?
Sure. So data in Sentinel is retained by default for 90 days, and customers have the option to extend that for a period of time. And then for really long-term retention, there are options to export data to storage or other kinds of kind of cold storage options for really long-term retention. Some organizations, for example, are required to keep data for 7 years. But 90 days by default with the option to extend, and then some options for cold storage after that.
Awesome. Question for you, Zvi. Maybe talk about Microsoft Defender and advanced hunting. I think this is probably a question to span across V and Sarah, hunting in a SIM and hunting in XDR.
Yeah, so maybe I'll start and then let Sarah expand on the capabilities. So one thing at Microsoft, we use one query language for hunting across our threat protection programs, Custo query language. It's quite an intuitive language. There's a few classes we published that are available to pick that up. It's a very intuitive, self-completing language with a lot of insight into the raw data. What you get in Microsoft 365 Defender is for the first time, we actually mash the raw data that comes from our Office solution, from identity solution, our application solutions, our endpoint solution, normalize that into a single schema where a alert is an alert, a file is a file, user is a user. You can probably relate to that if you are deployed today on your best of breed solution of how much effort it takes to actually normalize that data so you'll be able to join two tables over a single entity and pivot across that. So we do that work for you, all showing up in one schema where can you go and advance hunt. With the publication now of the single raw data API between Defender and Microsoft 365 Defender and Sentinel, you are able, we will move toward query parity where you can run the same query in Sentinel on over the raw data in Defender. Sarah, you can expand on how you can expand on this information across other data sets.
Yeah, so just to echo that, big advancements in terms of providing visibility to that data, both inside of Microsoft 365 Defender and now inside of Sentinel. So regardless of whether you're using our SIM or XDR solution, you have access to that data and a common query language to use for hunting. Now, what Azure Sentinel is going to add is the ability to correlate that Microsoft 365 Defender data with other data that you may have across your digital estate. So again, data from other cloud environments or other third-party security products and services that you might be using, or with threat intelligence sources, just as an example. The kind of possibilities are endless there, but that's where you'll be able to kind of port the data and the queries that you've got, use those in Sentinel across third-party data as well for correlation.
Question for you, Gilad, here around the capabilities of Azure Defender and network security and network traffic.
Sure. Azure Defender has a couple of capabilities around securing your network and focusing on your Azure network, starting with the security recommendations that help reduce the attack surface around your network, with helping customers to monitor for open management ports, offering our just-in-time network access that helps customers and provides them with a mechanism to basically limit access to these management ports, and in a way that reduces the attack surface. We monitor and provide all types of recommendations around PaaS services in Azure that are open for public access when this is not the best practice. And we provide a mechanism that we call adaptive network controls, where we actually model the network traffic from your virtual machines and make recommendations on how to harden your network security group according to our modeling of your traffic. And that's around kind of helping you reduce the attack surface around your network. We also ingest network signals in order to identify attacks and threat detections on your environment, which eventually result in threat detection alerts that surface into Azure Defender and from there to Sentinel.
Great, thank you. Question here, Sarah, around logs from Office 365, but I think maybe we could recap the announcement we made today in Vasu's session around data into Sentinel.
Around Office data being ingested into Sentinel?
Or Microsoft 365.
Okay. Yes. So a couple of announcements there, lots of news. So Adam, let me know if I'm not touching on the one that you had in mind, but we did introduce new connectors. We talked about the Microsoft 365 Defender connector that brings in raw data. We also have Office Defender for Office 365 alerts that are now being ingested. And we recently announced support for Teams raw data as well. So we've got a really robust set of Microsoft data sources that are available literally in a click from within Azure Sentinel. And though, so I'm not sure, Adam, if this is what you're alluding to, but we do have a new offer that Vasu announced today that we're super excited about, which is going to offer customers that are using the Microsoft Defender XDR solution and the Azure Sentinel SIEM solution together. Those customers will receive significant savings. They'll get an allocation of data within Azure Sentinel tied to their license count. So that'll be rolling out in November, and there are lots more details that we'll be releasing when we get a bit closer to that November 1st timeframe. But very, very exciting in terms of cost savings for customers that are using both of our Microsoft, both pieces of our Microsoft security stack. And I did see there were a couple of questions popped up in the chat window. Maybe I could just take a moment to address those around pricing. So Azure Sentinel operates a bit differently than the Microsoft 365 services in terms of how it's licensed. Those services are typically licensed on a per user kind of a model. But Azure Sentinel as an Azure service is priced on a consumption model. So what that means is that customers pay only for the data that they ingest into Azure Sentinel. And that provides them with a ton of flexibility in terms of kind of matching their SIEM cost to the actual amount of data that that's being ingested into the system. So that's Sentinel, that's the pricing model for Sentinel is a cost per gigabyte to ingest that data. And again, that includes the 90 days retention. There's a small incremental fee if you wanted to extend that retention. So hopefully that answers at least some of the pricing related questions that I saw
Awesome.
in the Q&A.
Good coverage there. This is actually, sorry, another one for maybe Zvi and Sarah to contrast answers around creating custom detection and alerts in Microsoft Defender XDR, and then maybe we could contrast that with how we do that in Microsoft Defender with XDR, and then what that looks like in Azure Sentinel as a good contrast between SIEM and XDR. Oh, you're muted, Zvi.
That happens. Hi. So yes, so from within Microsoft 365 Defender, we allow advanced hunting capability. That query, that Custo query language, can then turn into a custom query that you can decide on the schedule of where to run it. You can also, this is where I think you would differentiate than what Sarah will talk about. You can also then, based on the result set, so let's say the result set is machines, there are actions that you can take against machines built inside of the XDR platform. So you can take a custom query that you created that will create an alert. It will have a result set of, let's say, machines that came out of that. And then you have a right click, if you want, set of actions that you can take against that machine. If the result set is files, then maybe you can quarantine them. If the result set is a machine, maybe you can isolate it. If the result set is an email, maybe you can purge that email, etc., etc. User, you can raise the user suspicious level, and then your enterprise protocol will kick in terms of what you do with that, limit access, two-factor authentication, etc. So the ability to actually take the custom hunting, turn it into a custom detection, and then apply actions that are available through the various platforms that are connected to that is a great capability that we allow you as a SIEM to think about it, custom detections with custom actions, where you will go to Sentinel if you had to build these detections across multiple data sets. We also envision that, understand that not all customers in the world will have all our workloads deployed. Therefore, you must use Sentinel in this case if you wanted to create a custom detection, which is across our endpoint information and, let's say, proof point for email. Sarah.
Yeah, I think you hit on it again. The big distinction is the ability to extend those capabilities to your other data sources as well. So we also have the concept of scheduled queries, so common across the two platforms, and Sentinel comes with 100 or so of those out of the box, but you can customize and create your own. And the idea here, again, to contrast with the Defender product suite, is the ability to take that and extend it to third-party data sources. Another distinction is we also have some built-in ML capabilities that offer specialized detections on this third-party data, and also an ML concept that we refer to as fusion, where we take lower fidelity events and alerts from multiple Microsoft and third-party security data sources, and we fuse those together into a very small number of high-fidelity, very, very actionable incidents. So the goal there is to leverage ML to reduce the volume of alerts that your SOC team needs to address. And then we have some new capabilities, a new machine learning framework that we announced this week that also enables you to build your own ML models. So you can export, there's kind of a data pipeline that enables you to export data from Azure Sentinel, leverage that in Azure Databricks, use our built-in templates and utilities to develop and tune your own ML models, and then to bring that data, those findings, back into Sentinel for investigation and response by your SOC analysts. So again, kind of hitting on that distinction, being able to take those custom detections and extend them across your data set, and then also I would say to extend those to other kinds of analytics, such as not only the built-in, but the ability to sort of develop your own ML models on top of that combined Microsoft and third-party data set.
Awesome, thank you both. And I've got a follow-on question for that one, and then one for you, Gilad, on multi-cloud. For both of you and Sarah, a question here, which is a good one, around the question was actually around a blog having code-based samples, but I think maybe we could talk about the community and how we're publishing queries and information to GitHub in a way of sharing learnings in the threat space.
Yeah, maybe I can start on this one. Community is very, very important to Azure Sentinel. We've got an active GitHub where folks can contribute data connectors and parsers. They can contribute analytic rules and detections, ML templates for those folks that are building their own ML models, Jupyter notebooks, samples, automation playbooks, and much, much more. And it's really just an important part of how we approach solving this very, very complex problem of securing this expanded digital estate. So being able to leverage insights and learnings and contributions from this diverse community of security experts. So folks can contribute those onto GitHub, they go through a validation process, and then they actually show up in context within the Azure Sentinel experience. So you don't have to necessarily go to GitHub to be able to leverage content that was contributed to GitHub through our threat hunters community.
Okay, Gilad, one for you. During the breakout session, there was mention of ASC with cloud security posture management and use cases for AWS and GCP. Maybe you could talk a little bit around our multi-cloud approach and protecting resources regardless of where they run.
Definitely, definitely. In Ignite, we've basically announced two elements that together comprise our new foothold on multi-cloud security for as part of Azure Security Center and Azure Defender. Starting with cloud security posture management. That's the feature set and capabilities in Security Center that are around the Azure Secure Score and regulatory compliance, which were focused on Azure so far. And we have now announced a public preview of a capability that enables customers to register their AWS accounts and their GCP projects into Azure Security Center. And once they do so, we actually can connect to those and leveraging built-in native tools by AWS and GCP, namely AWS Security Hub and GCP Security and Command Center. We basically extract security posture findings from these platforms into Security Center automatically and embed them into the native security posture management experiences in Security Center. So these will be part of your Azure Secure Score. They will be part of your regulatory compliance dashboard. You can actually see them side by side, and these are part of the demos that we're showing. That's kind of part number one. The second announcement that we've made is actually taking Azure Defender for servers and using that to support servers that are running and VMs running in AWS and GCP. To elaborate on that a bit, in the past and historically, Azure Security Center and Azure Defender supported the servers that are not running in Azure using the MMA agent that we have always leveraged. But there are a few features and multiple features that were not supported outside of Azure that were leveraging Azure infrastructure, and so were only available for Azure VMs. Now, and starting today, and leveraging the Azure Arc motion that Azure has recently announced in the last year, we are basically supporting a much higher level of threat protection with Azure Defender for servers on AWS and GCP servers. That includes automatic agent deployment and discovery for AWS EC2 instances, and policy management, and of course all the goodies that you're familiar with in Azure around the EDR and the threat detection, vulnerability management, etc. So security posture management and Azure Defender in both of these motions together comprise what we're now announcing on Multicloud.
Awesome. And I realize we're coming close to the end. The one part of this diagram we haven't really touched on so far is partnerships. And so maybe for all three of you, maybe we could just cover how we think about partnerships for our security portfolio, APIs, integrations, and the ecosystem. So maybe Sarah, we start with you with Azure Sentinel at the top, thinking about partnerships, APIs, and etc.
Yeah, so ecosystem, very important to Sentinel, again, as we try to expand out to provide security value on top of this extended digital estate. Of course, offering, best-in-class integration with our Microsoft products and services as well. We also hear increasingly from organizations, not just on the partnership front, but that APIs are critical for them also as they move toward this model of managing their SIEM as code. And so we've got a rich set of APIs that enable not only partners and integrations, but also to enable more automated management of Sentinel configurations as well. So kind of focusing on our work on APIs across both fronts. So that's kind of a quick answer anyway on the Sentinel side.
Glad, I know you've got a lot going on in the partnership space as well from your side.
Yes, so Azure Security Center historically had multiple partner integrations around mostly around vulnerability management, and we still do so today, basically enabling customers who run their own vulnerability assessment solutions such as Qualys or Rapid7 to basically connect that to Security Center and have these vulnerability findings surface in Security Center, thus fulfilling one of the Secure Score recommendations. We also have a discovery for anti-malware solutions from multiple vendors, including Symantec and McAfee, and Windows, and now coming on Linux as well. And so we have different levels of support for partner solutions. I also saw a question here in the chat around MFA solution, third-party MFA solutions. For those who do not yet have an integration into Azure Defender and to Azure Secure Score, to be more precise, but our Azure Secure Score does enable customers who leverage a third-party solution in a way that's fully equivalent to a control that we provide, to basically disable that control on the Azure Secure Score, so that they can that they do not receive a lower score given that they don't use the Microsoft solution.
Awesome. So I know that we're coming up on time here. There are some more resources available, some aka.ms links to learn more about SIM and XDR, our multi-cloud strategy, and Microsoft 365 mechanics with Rob Lepers. Follow us on Twitter at MSFD Security, and you can read the security blog there for a lot more information. Thank you all so much for the questions. I know that was there was a lot coming through. We'll get to all of them in the tool. Thank you to Sarah, Gilad, and Zvi for being our resident experts and answering the questions on this one. And please, everyone, enjoy your Ignite.